You think you see reality. You think your thoughts are truth. You think your feelings are facts. But right now, as you watch this video, your brain is lying to you. Not occasionally, not sometimes, constantly. Every memory you trust, edited. Every perception you have, filtered. Every decision you make, influenced by forces you can't see. You are not experiencing reality. You are experiencing a story your brain is telling you about reality, and that story is full of lies. The anger you felt this morning, a lie. The rejection you perceived yesterday, a fabrication. The certainty you have about who you are, the biggest fiction of all. You are not a passive observer of truth. You are an unreliable narrator living inside your own propaganda machine. And the most dangerous part? You believe every word of it. Carl Jung understood this with devastating clarity. He saw that the human mind is not a truth-seeking instrument. It's a meaning-making machine. A story-generating factory that runs 24/7, spinning narratives from fragments of perception, weaving tales from threads of memory, creating entire worlds from whispers of sensation. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves, Jung wrote. But he was pointing to something deeper. That irritation, it's not about them. It's about the story your brain is telling you about them. The projection your mind is casting onto the blank screen of another human being. Tonight, I'm going to show you the 5 ways your brain lies to you every single day. The cognitive traps that turn reality into fiction. The mental mechanisms that transform truth into comfortable delusion. But more than that, I'm going to give you what Jung discovered. The antidote to your own unreliability. The way to catch your brain in its lies. The path to psychological sovereignty in a mind that's constantly trying to enslave you to its stories. Because once you see how the narrative is constructed, you can never again be its prisoner. Once you understand that you're the narrator, you can finally start telling a different story. Let me destroy your most cherished possession, your memories. That childhood trauma, you're certain happened exactly as you remember. Your brain has been editing it for years, adding details that weren't there, removing ones that were, changing the emotional tone to match your current story about who you are. Jung discovered this in his work with patients. The same event, remembered at different times, became entirely different stories. Not because the patients were lying, because memory isn't a recording. It's a reconstruction. Every time you remember something, you're not accessing a file. You're rebuilding the experience from scratch. And each rebuilding incorporates your current emotions, your present beliefs, your today self into the yesterday event. That argument where you were completely right and they were completely wrong. Your brain simplified it, made you the hero, made them the villain, removed the parts where you contributed to the conflict, enhanced the parts where you were victimized. This isn't weakness. This is engineering. Your brain's primary job isn't to store accurate data. It's to create a coherent narrative that helps you survive. And sometimes, survival means being the hero of your own story, even if that requires rewriting history. Think about your most painful memory, the one that defines you, the one you've told yourself 1,000 times. Now realize, that memory has been edited 1,000 times. Each telling smoothing the edges that don't fit. Each recall adding emphasis where it serves your current identity. You're not remembering what happened. You're remembering the last time you remembered it. a copy of a copy of a copy, degrading and transforming with each iteration. This is why siblings remember the same childhood completely differently, why witnesses to the same event give contradictory testimonies, why your ex tells a version of your relationship that sounds like science fiction to you. Nobody's lying. Everyone's brain is doing what brains do, creating stories and believing them. But here's where it gets really dangerous. Your brain doesn't just lie about the past. It actively hallucinates the present. Right now, you're not seeing what's there. You're seeing what your brain expects to be there, what it needs to be there, what confirms the story it's already telling. Jung called this projection, but it's more insidious than he could have imagined. When you meet someone, you don't meet them. You meet your brain's instant story about them, based on a micro-expression that reminds you of your father, a tone that echoes your first rejection, a gesture that triggers a forgotten fear. In milliseconds, before consciousness even gets involved, your brain has written their character, assigned their role, decided whether they're friend or foe, opportunity or threat, love or danger. And then, the most sinister part, your brain filters all subsequent information to confirm this initial fiction. They smile? If your brain labeled them safe, it's warmth. If it labeled them threat, it's manipulation. They're quiet. If your brain likes them, they're thoughtful. If it doesn't, they're plotting. Same behavior, completely different story, all depending on the narrative your brain assigned in that first unconscious instant. This is why you can't trust your gut feelings about people. Your gut isn't feeling them. It's feeling your brain's story about them. Your intuition isn't mystical wisdom. It's pattern matching based on incomplete data and emotional residue from your past. That person who gives you bad vibes, they might just remind your unconscious of someone who hurt you. That instant connection you feel could be your brain recognizing familiar dysfunction and labeling it as love. You walk through the world thinking you're perceiving people as they are, but you're living in a hall of mirrors, seeing your own projections reflected back endlessly, creating characters in a play you don't even know you're writing. And this projection machine doesn't just operate on others. The biggest lie your brain tells you, who you are. You think you have a solid identity, a core self, essential qualities that make you you. Jung knew better. He saw that what you call self is just another story, a character your brain has been developing since childhood. A protagonist it keeps consistent through selective memory, convenient forgetting, and constant narrative revision. I'm not a morning person. I'm bad at math. I'm an introvert. I'm just not creative. These aren't facts. They're plot points. Elements in a story your brain committed to years ago and now defends like gospel truth. Watch what happens when reality contradicts your identity story. You wake up energized one morning. Your brain dismisses it as an anomaly. You solve a complex problem. Your brain attributes it to luck. You enjoy a social gathering. Your brain frames it as an exception, because maintaining the story matters more than acknowledging truth. This is why change feels impossible. Not because you can't change, but because change threatens the narrative coherence your brain values above all else. Every transformation requires your brain to admit it's been telling the wrong story, and brains would rather die than admit they're wrong. So you stay stuck, not because you are who you are, but because your brain is committed to the fiction of who you've been. That anxiety you have, it's not a possession. It's a character trait, your brain, assigned to your protagonist. That depression you suffer from, it's not an invasion. It's a storyline your brain keeps writing because it's familiar. Even your trauma. Yes, the events happened, but the meaning you've made of them, the identity you've built around them, that's all narrative, all construction, all your brain turning pain into plot. You are not your story. You are the one hearing the story. But your brain doesn't want you to know that, because if you knew that, you might start telling a different one. And that terrifies the narrator that's been running your life. Here's the most profound lie. Your brain doesn't just distort what happens. It invents why it happens. Something occurs. Your partner doesn't text back. A neutral event. Data without meaning. But your brain can't tolerate meaninglessness. So it creates meaning instantly, automatically, invisibly. They're losing interest. They found someone better. I'm being abandoned again. From no response to full catastrophe in under a second. And your body reacts to this fictional meaning as if it were real. Heart racing, anxiety spiking, preparing for a threat that exists only in the story. Jung saw this constantly in his practice. The same event would have completely different meanings for different people. Not because the event was different, but because each brain was running different story-making software. Childhood neglect becomes, I'm unlovable in one brain. I must be perfect in another. People are unreliable in a third. Same input. Completely different stories. Completely different lives. This is why two people can experience the same tragedy and one emerges stronger while the other is broken. Not because one is inherently more resilient, but because their brains wrote different stories about what the tragedy meant. But here's what's truly mind-bending. These meanings feel discovered, not created. Your brain's story feels like truth, not fiction. The meaning seems inherent in the event, not projected onto it. This is the ultimate deception. Your brain hides its authorship, makes you believe you're discovering meaning rather than creating it. Turns you into an audience member in your own life, watching a story you don't realize you're writing. Every reaction you have is to meaning, not events. And every meaning is manufactured by the unreliable narrator in your head. Which brings us to the final, most devastating lie. Your brain's ultimate lie, that you're in charge. You think you make decisions, you think you choose your actions, you think you control your thoughts. Jung understood. The ego, what you call I, is just another character in the story. Most of the time, it's not even the main character. Your unconscious runs the show, making decisions seconds before your conscious mind knows about them, creating desires you think you chose, generating thoughts you believe you're thinking. That person you're attracted to. Your unconscious decided based on patterns and wounds you're not even aware of. Your conscious mind just makes up reasons afterward. That career you chose, unconscious drives picked it. Your ego just rationalized the choice. That argument you got into, unconscious complexes were fighting. Your conscious self was just providing the dialogue. You're not driving the car. You're in the passenger seat, narrating the journey, believing your narration is causing the movement. I'm turning left, you say, as the car turns left. Believing your words created the action. This is why willpower fails, why resolutions crumble, Why you do things you swore you wouldn't, and don't do things you swore you would. The narrator doesn't control the story, it just describes it. If you're starting to feel the ground shifting beneath you, good. Because recognizing these lies is the first step to something Jung called individuation, the process of becoming conscious of your own unconsciousness, of catching the narrator in its deceptions. Because while you can't stop your brain from lying, you can learn to recognize the lies, and in that recognition lies your only freedom. Now that your comfortable illusions are shattered, let me show you what Jung discovered, the way out of the narrative prison. First, understand this. You cannot stop your brain from creating stories. That's like trying to stop your heart from beating. The narrative function is core programming, millions of years of evolution deep. But you can become conscious of the storytelling process itself. Start here. The next time you have a strong emotional reaction, pause. Ask yourself, what story is my brain telling me right now? Not what's happening, but what story about what's happening is my brain creating? Someone criticizes you. Before you react, catch the story. Are they attacking me? Are they threatened by me? Are they trying to help? Notice how many possible narratives exist. Notice how your brain picked one instantly and is now defending it as truth. This is what Jung called holding the tension of opposites. Not choosing a story immediately, not collapsing into narrative certainty, but staying present with multiple possible meanings. It's uncomfortable. Your brain hates it. It wants a single clear story, good or bad, right or wrong, victim or victor. But in that discomfort of not knowing, of not choosing, lies your freedom. Second practice. Examine your identity stories. Write down 10 things you believe about yourself. I am. Statements. Then ask, where did this story come from? What evidence contradicts it? What would happen if I stopped telling this story? You'll find most of your limitations are narrative, not natural. Most of your can'ts are won'ts dressed up as impossibilities. Third, start tracking your projections. When someone triggers you, when you have an instant strong reaction to a person, stop. What story did my brain just write about them? What are they reminding me of? What part of myself am I seeing in them? This isn't about becoming passive or emotionless. It's about recognizing that your reactions are to your stories, not to reality. And if you're going to react, you might as well know what you're actually reacting to. Here is the deepest practice. Jung's ultimate discovery wasn't about stopping the lies. It was about finding the part of you that can witness them. Behind the narrator, behind the story maker, behind the meaning manufacturer, there's something else, a witnessing consciousness. The part of you that can observe your own thoughts, that can watch your brain creating stories without being swept away by them. This witness doesn't judge, doesn't choose, doesn't prefer one story over another. It simply sees. When you access this witness position, something profound happens. The stories lose their absolute power. They become what they always were: mental events. Narrative weather passing through the sky of consciousness. The anger is still there, but you're not consumed by it. The fear still arises, but you're not controlled by it. The stories still get told, but you're not imprisoned by them. This is what Jung called the self, capital S, not the ego, not the persona, not the character in your story, but the consciousness that can witness all stories without being identified with any of them. And here's the paradox that breaks most people's minds. The more you witness your stories without believing them, the more they start to change, not through force, not through will, but through simple awareness. The brain that knows it's being watched starts telling different stories, more nuanced ones, more truthful ones, more helpful ones. Not because you demanded it, but because consciousness itself has a transformative power that unconsciousness can never match. If you're ready to stop being a slave to your brain's fiction, if you're ready to catch the narrator in its lies, subscribe now. Join others who are learning to witness their own stories without drowning in them. Here's what changes when you realize your brain is lying to you. You stop taking your thoughts so seriously. That voice in your head saying you're not enough, just another story, that certainty that everyone's judging you, pure fiction. That conviction that you know what others are thinking, admitted fabrication. You become curious instead of certain. When emotions arise instead of drowning, you wonder, what story is creating this feeling? When reactions explode instead of justifying, you investigate. What narrative am I defending? You develop what Jung called a symbolic attitude. Everything becomes information about your psyche's story-making patterns rather than facts about reality. But here's what doesn't change. The stories don't stop. Your brain keeps lying. The narrative machine keeps running. What changes is your relationship to it all. You become a conscious participant rather than an unconscious victim, a co-author rather than a character, a witness rather than a prisoner. And in that shift, everything shifts. Because when you know your brain is lying, you can finally start choosing better lies, more helpful fictions, more empowering narratives. Not truth, never truth. The brain isn't capable of pure truth, but more useful stories, more conscious myths, more deliberate meanings. You can't stop being a narrator, but you can become a better one. You can't escape stories, but you can tell ones that liberate rather than limit. Your brain will lie to you until the day you die. That's not a bug, that's the feature. The question is, will you believe every lie? Or will you learn to witness the liar, smile at its creativity, and choose which fictions serve your becoming? The narrator is powerful, but the witness is free. Which one are you choosing to be right now, in this moment, as you create the meaning of these words? Are you the story, or are you the one watching it unfold? Your brain is already crafting an answer, already spinning a tale. Can you catch it in the act? Can you finally see the liar for what it is? Not your enemy, not your master, just a storytelling machine that forgot to tell you it was making everything up. Welcome to consciousness, where every story is recognized as fiction, and in that recognition, you finally find something real. The you that exists before the stories begin.